Good morning. Um, just wanted to see in the room how many people are actually with local government, okay. or apply their work at that level. All right, we're doing all right.
What do you mean by local government though? Municipal, provincial?
Local, subnational, primarily local, municipal, regional, yeah. So Open North, based out of Montreal, we're a national nonprofit. Began in 2011 and have been working in and around open smart cities, data governance, digital strategies. And as you can imagine, any people working in government these days, AI becomes a topic and becomes a conversation that is unavoidable. We recently went through an organization strategy development, and really we landed on this idea of the common good. And so that it really informs our perspective and who we work with. And for us, the common good is the ability to move past short-term constraints, short-term perspective, and individual and organizational desires, and into what matters for the good of the commons. Can I switch to the presenter? No, presenter view, the one that shows my notes. I had it before. Yeah, no. Yes, perfect. Thank you. So I just wanted to start because AI means, everything and nothing at this point. It's been such a broadly applied term. And there's a lot of hype right now around AI and the influence on government and, influence on society. And a lot of it, serves to this feeling about that it's brand new and that we haven't been dealing with it. And that's just not the case. And so, I'm not going to walk through the differences between the Turing test and some large language models and the natural language processing into generative AI, but just to show that it's been around and there have been people dealing with this for a really long time. But we do have some things that are new. The large language models, frontier models, but more importantly, with this newness comes a need to be able to govern for. And because inevitably it's going to come into local government, it's going to come into government in general, and increasingly we don't have a choice about whether we choose to govern for. So this comes out of two letters. One on the left, letter written in March, from the Future of Life Institute, taking a very long-termism view, referring to a catastrophic future. I don't know if many of you remember this letter, asking for a 6-month pause in generative AI development, and CEOs who are making money off of this want to regroup and figure out how to make money. But in the letter, it was like, we're gonna lose society to robots, was essentially the point of the letter. And then there was a counter letter that was like, okay, so some of these concerns are real, perhaps. Losing control of society to robots would be a concern. But we have some very real risks right now that are happening. Worker exploitation and data theft. This is happening. Black box algorithms making decisions that we can't audit. This is happening. Synthetic media and being unable to tell the difference between what is AI generated and what is real. This is happening. And so, and a concentration of power within these CEOs that are worried about robots. And so they said, we need to think about how do we govern for this right now at a global level. And let's focus on that first, and then we can worry about the other potential issues later. And so when we look at AI governance, a lot of international, a lot of national, a lot of things being published around principles. There's a lot out there, and Canada's been an early mover since 2017. You know, we've got our AIDA and the Bill C-27, which are not without their own controversy, and rightfully so. But governance still highly nascent, and it's inadequate. And it's inadequate around public trust, public engagement and governance, and even decisions around what technology is being used and why. So just to establish where and how Open North comes at this, we've got a number of projects on the go right now, and a few that we can talk about. One is Urban AI. Urban IA is the Francophone version. And there's concerns about the negative impacts of AI on marginalized communities. And so this is a community project around how do we govern for, how do we govern with communities who are the most likely to be disproportionately impacted by negative impacts. The second one, Rogers Cybersecurity Catalyst, it's a research project with TMU looking at, we have lots of calls for transparency around AI development, which is important, but then there's this competing tension of cybersecurity. And so when we're looking at governing with and for AI, how do we balance that tension? What are the things that are going to come into contrast and into tension, and how do we deal with them? And what decisions need to be made, and who needs to make them? The Community Solutions Network, funded by formerly known as Infrastructure Canada, and in partnership with Evergreen, and we're the lead technical advisor since 2018. And so we've been supporting communities across Canada in that time around the concept of open smart communities. And so within that has been the open data movement, it's been the digital modernization movement, now AI and other emerging technologies, and how do we support local government to do that. And we primarily focus not on the City of Toronto, not on large municipalities, but on the small and medium enterprises that don't have necessarily the resources to be able to make these capacity gains on their own. And then we do work with the City of Montreal, have been supporting their data governance work for the last 4 years. And out of that work emerged this Montreal Climate Data Hub. And the reason I put it here is because the work originally came about as a platform, a data platform. How do you visualize GHG emissions? And then when we looked at what would be necessary in the data architecture to support that platform, or the dashboard, we recognized that, very similar data governance needs as to creating good AI and data for AI. And so in this project, we sort of pulled it back from a dashboard and visualization and into creating a climate data hub as a way, as a use case of how do we create systems of data governance within intersectoral communities, or intersectoral domains, so that you can use additional technology on top of that, predictive analytics and such. So just to ground us in what's currently going on, and this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but I think we're so focused on generative AI and what it's going to do that we've sort of lost sight of the breadth of AI and what is already happening, and also that there's new, both within this umbrella of AI, but also technologies that are come. We're talking digital twins and AR and VR, and all of these things are going to continue to emerge on top of what has already been there. And so, we see chatbots, and there's an obsession with chatbots right now. That's the new open data portal, solving all of our problems. But we've seen this machine learning and traffic modulation for a while, really good sort of systems to replace some bureaucratic work, summarizing texts and such. So our thinking as an organization is largely informed by the local governments that we work with. And so I wanted to bring directly some of these themes to you, including a quote that came from a lead-in session that we had on Wednesday. And it said, "The pace of technological change and public adoption far outstrips what mechanisms are in place to formally adapt within our work environment." It's a very telling statement, and it's not abnormal, and it's not new. It's just, this summarizes where we're at right now. So current guidance does not differentiate between different tools of varying risks. Back to what's been new, what's new and what's been happening. Data governance has high variability across departments and teams. So some people are looking at it, some people have been thinking about it, and a lot of people haven't. Sometimes it is emerging for specific cases and is not enabling interdepartmental data sharing, data governance. Obsession with chatbots. And then the lack of explainability is a major concern. Not being rules-based, same data goes in, other information or other decisions are coming out, and how do you explain that, and how do you audit it? Then concerns about reinforcing bias. Data that we have is biased inherently. Marginalized communities, vulnerable communities are often underrepresented in the data. Machines are just going to reinforce that. And then shadow areas of organizational guidance. Sort of there, sort of not. You're operating because there's no explicit instruction to use it. There's really no resources necessarily to use it. When it's used, you're sort of, not clear instructions, not clear guidance. And so here's our reflections that build on our experience and on the research that we're doing. And I was trying to, haven't gone all the way on this yet, but I was trying to make this comparison with food, right? So we know in our bodies, if we eat garbage, we're gonna feel like garbage. Data is the same way to AI. If the data that we have going in has biases, is not interoperable, is not done in a way that is ethical and responsible and intentional, the results are going to be garbage. Requires public education and debate. We talk about public health and food all the time. We talk about lobbying when we thought we needed to drink 18 glasses of milk a day, and maybe that wasn't. We need the public education on what is right, and debate, right? And this fits within our democratic society. There needs to be debate on what is used, when it's used, and the public needs to be involved in that. We also have reflections on this unpredictability and the difficult way to be audited. There needs to be some guidance around that. And then just accountability. And the accountability doesn't lie with the artifact. Accountability lies with the builder or the implementer, and those who deploy them, and rigorous third-party risk assessment, data and AI registries, eliminating black box tools, and there needs to be official roles. It needs to be who is accountable and how are they being held accountable, or how are they holding those who are using AI, how are they holding them accountable? So it's, back to our question of governing with and for AI. Emerging high-level regulation, a lot of hype, a lot of discussion, a lot of narrative. but also the reality is that at the local level, we're still unsupported. And where do we start? And for us, we start on changing our perspective. And so, we know AI tools are heterogeneous. We talked about that. Lots of different layers, lots of different risk factors, but inherently based on data. And you're going to be able to see where I'm going with this. Anyone who knows Open North, you know where we're going. Operate within vast technological organization and ultimately societal systems. So having just talk of AI doing things eliminates it or reduces it away from that system that it operates within and eliminates the investment within that system, which means we need to take a system perspective and understand how local government can act to build responsible governance and not have to do it alone. So instead of tool-centric, we look at it from the perspective of social and technological systems, organizations, people, data. So this is the shift. Techno-solutionism, I really dislike that this is where we landed because these words are very hard to say. But techno-solutionism, frequently little evidence that solutions work, right? We're just going, there's a tech determinism to this, that this will work and we just need to make it work. And this shifts thinking from social, economical, political analysis to really an engineering and a tool perspective. Locks in specific technologies and becomes democratically inaccessible. And so we shift into socio-technical perspective, which is invest in solutions that involve inclusive, transparent, accountable, and responsible governance structures. We want to invest in solutions that expand infrastructure and expand the multi-stakeholder digital capacity. So as a proposal to where do we start? We think of it in three ways. Decenter the uniqueness of AI. And this isn't in contradiction to what I've been saying before, in that there is uniqueness across this umbrella of AI. But when we say decenter the uniqueness of AI, it means that generally governance for AI is good digital governance. And pre-COVID, through COVID, now, local governments continue to struggle with digital governance or governing for emerging technology. AI is not different from that, and the foundational solutions are not different from that. So we're looking at data quality, ensuring non-biased outcomes, public oversight, and then recenter the digital maturity. I don't like the word maturity, but I changed it too late after they'd already downloaded my deck, which means I was still working on it up until about 5 minutes ago. But we're recentering digital capacity, right? This needs to be the focus. Rather than centering AI, we're recentering a generalized digital capacity, digital maturity, and investing in that. We don't know how technology is going to go. We don't know how fast, right? Like we've been a little bit caught off guard because of the speed of generative AI, but we don't know what's next. And so in order to not chase each of these new shiny things, there's a foundation that can be built that helps us better adapt and respond. And work from problems to solutions. This is a big one for us. Often when tech comes and tech vendors and shiny things that people want to play with, you bring the solution and you find the problem to adapt it to. And we need to always make sure that we're working the other way around. Is this a problem that needs a technological solution? And unless we're answering that question first, we shouldn't be pursuing any new technologies. And so not bearing the lead, data governance. It's a thing. It's an important thing for AI. So for us, data governance is not just compliance. It's not just another set of standards, but it's a relationship between government, residents, private sector. I put academia in here this time because in my last talk, I got called out for not putting academia, and as a recovering academic, it hurt. So it's in there. It's true. It's big. This is where a lot of the research is coming from. Data governance introduces mechanisms of transparency, inclusivity, and accountability. And one of the things that we always say about data governance is it's happening. You are governing your data. And if you don't have a data governance framework, it's happening ad hoc and informally and on a need-to-be basis within departments and ultimately creating silos. And so what we're suggesting is that data governance needs to happen prior to, and a data governance framework needs to happen prior to AI, not afterwards. And as much as we would say data governance is extremely important, it's necessary but insufficient. So, but it's an actionable right now. It's a thing that doesn't need to be figured out. It's not a new concept. It's not a new technology. It's a way to say we can build a foundation for AI while we're still learning about what that means and while we're still learning about whether we want to use it or not. One of the reasons that we talk about governing with and for AI, and that distinction is increasingly becoming less, is because we get feedback from local governments saying, we're not there, we don't do it, we're not thinking about that right now, we don't want a chatbot. And we're saying, great, you don't need a chatbot, but you do need to figure out how to govern for it, because it's there. It's there with your vendors, you're gonna feel the pressure, it's within systems that you're procuring, it's there, and you need to figure out, public is using it, you need to govern for it, and how do you make sure that you are prepared and as prepared as possible, and we suggest tangible step is data governance. And again, decentering AI, emerging technology in general, data governance is important for, and I would suggest governing in general. So here's some 6 proposed data governance measures. Again, public education, I'm not sure that that's the term. It's public involvement, it's public engagement based on proper engagement principles, which often necessitates education. And especially within emerging technology, there needs to be capacity built within the public in order to be able to participate fully in the conversation. And there's a lot of learning, too. There's a lot of learning from residents that would be really valuable. And beyond residents, obviously learning across sectors and stakeholders. And one of the things that I will point out when we're talking about the public is that we're not looking for consensus. AI comes with a lot of conspiracy and a lot of fear. And while social license is important, in fact should be imperative, you're not going to get consensus around the safety of AI, and I don't think that needs to be a goal. Data sovereignty, we know that AI systems have been exploiting data, that there has been public lack of being careful with what they're entering into GPT systems. So there needs to be really a focus on the voices that are typically underrepresented and a data sovereignty aspect of it. And then data collaboration. If we're trying to solve truly complex problems using technology, not one sector owns the amount of data, the scope of data, the quality of data in order to allow for AI support to be super effective, right? So we're looking at the Climate Data Hub, and data around climate used to be fully the purview of local government. But now, data around emissions really often sits outside of local government. And so for any complex challenge like climate, if you're properly assembling data to support the use of the tools, it's going to require intersectoral collaboration. And so there needs to be effective sharing, organizing, interoperability. And then we get back to this idea of transparency. How open are the technologies, data sets, and their governance? And again, not forgetting to recognize the tension between transparency and the need for cybersecurity. Data quality, how's the accuracy and fit demonstrated? What's the human element of ensuring that data quality is there and the data that's being fed is of proper quality? And then data privacy. Privacy principles need to be operationalized before you start to use and experiment and find out how dangerous it can be. That's it for me. Thank you very much.